Okay, it's 10:02, so I guess I'll get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Keegan Campbell. I am the prevention coordinator here at Golden House in Green Bay. We are the only domestic violence shelter in Brown County. My topic today we're going to be talking about is recovering from domestic violence victimization, the 7 dimensions of wellness. A little bit about me. My background is in health promotion and wellness, so this is kind of in my wheelhouse. I graduated from Stevens Point. My role here, I started about 5 months ago, and I kind of give a unique perspective and newer perspective on different prevention ideas. My work connects to this conference because I directly am working with the community and different organizations here in Green Bay on how to prevent abusive relationships all across the board. And that's by giving education and resources to various types of people. For this topic, specifically today, I'm going to try to help you guys understand the impacts of domestic violence on victims and the well-being as a whole. We're going to learn how to prevent different outcomes and how we can improve them in the end. Most of us attending today are dealing with victims after the abuse has happened. So this is really important to talk about what to do in the aftermath and the ripple effect that those abusive relationships can have. So hopefully all of you will be able to take away some sort of new information on the different dimensions of wellness, as well as how you can assist a victim with becoming more well overall. If you guys have any questions throughout, please feel free to put them in the chat. I have it up on my screen, so I'm watching that as well, and we can cover those questions right away. Okay. So starting off, I'm just going to give the very basic, what is domestic violence? Most of us probably know what this is, but I just want to reiterate it. So it's a pattern of behaviors used by one partner over the other to maintain that power and control in an intimate relationship. Multiple forms, there's physical, sexual, emotional, financial, and digital. And I'm going to touch on all of those a little bit today in different ways in each of those dimensions of wellness. Most of the time, we know it's not just one or the other for the forms of abuse. It's going to be all of them kind of conjumbled together. And lastly, DV does not discriminate. Anybody can be a victim or perpetrator, all races, ages, genders, sexualities, and economic statuses. All right. And then the next definition we're going to go over, it is what is wellness? Most of us know we've heard this term all the time. We know kind of what it is, but the actual definition of this is the active pursuit of activities, choices, and lifestyles that lead to a state of holistic health. An individual chase. We all have self-responsibility for our own choices, behaviors, and lifestyles, but these are significantly going to be influenced by the physical, social, and cultural environments that we live in and put ourselves in every day. It's also the absence of disease and illness. It's thriving versus surviving. And lastly, it is a privilege. That is something I really want to highlight here. That as we go through this presentation, I want all of you to understand that these dimensions of wellness and being overall well as a person really is a privilege for a lot of people. It is what we can focus on after a victim has survived their abusive relationship. This is something that we're going to cover after we've gone through the basic survival tactics. There's a lot of different ways we can improve all these dimensions and aspects of health, but ultimately we have to keep in mind that these things are not always possible and it's going to take time. But hopefully by me giving you this information, you guys are going to be able to understand what working with victims can be like and keeping these best practices in mind and that they can be used at the right time. So that is the definition of wellness. The next part here is the 7 dimensions I'm going to talk about today. So there's physical, emotional, social, environmental, spiritual, career, and financial. These are the basic 7 that my education was based on. There's lots of different universities and companies will argue that there's 6 dimensions, that there's 7, that there's 8. Doesn't really matter. They all are kind of getting that same concept of wellness. All of these are important equally. You can't have one without the other. To be well overall, you're going to want a balance of each of these. And if somebody is a victim of domestic violence, each one of these categories is going to be impacted in a different way. Okay, so regarding implicit bias for this whole conference, I wanted to touch on a few things about which ones are going to be related to overall wellness. So these are ones I want you to specifically keep in mind during my presentation. So the first one, classism. So that's socioeconomic status. A typical bias that some people and a lot of people will have in our society is that people with higher incomes are associated with better nutritional status, better housing conditions and medical services. And while this does have some truth, it's not always the case. Next one, elitism. So that's based on your status and your level of education. Higher levels of education tend to have better health awareness and healthy related knowledge. And lastly, sizeism. So this is based on a person's weight or outward appearance. There's a big concept that if somebody is skinny, that means that they are well. And if somebody's fat, that they are unwell. This is not always the case. And just because somebody's size does not indicate if they are well or unwell, or if they're healthy or not. Lots of different factors can go into that. So these are the couple ideas I want you guys to keep in mind today. Okay, next part here is some common phrases of bias. So I also put some blurbs on here. So the first one, this is regarding the spiritual wellness dimension, and we're going to get to that eventually. So for example, somebody might say she must not believe in religion because she divorced her husband. In reality, she may be a Catholic woman, but she was in an abusive relationship and she needed to leave. So that's how it's affecting her spiritual dimension of wellness, these biases. He can't be a victim of domestic violence. He's so strong and he works out all the time. How could she hurt him? This one's regarding physical wellness. That dimension. Domestic violence isn't always physical. Anybody can be a victim. We know these things. Last one here. They didn't even try to hang out with me anymore and just cared about their partner. This one is going to impact the social dimension of wellness. You never know what's happening behind closed doors. Maybe they're facing that isolation from their abuser. So these are a couple common phrases that maybe you have heard or will hear in the future. So that was kind of about the biases. We really are going to get into the meat now. So we're going to go through each of those 7 dimensions of wellness. And I'm going to first talk about the definition. I'm going to talk about how DV is going to impact each of those dimensions. And then also how we can overcome. So how can we fix? How can we make it better? So first one here, most common one people think of is physical wellness. So the definition of this is healthy behaviors, including exercise, proper nutrition, healthy sleeping, sexual health, and substance use. Learning about disease and harm prevention, developing those healthy habits that are going to help you live a longer and happier life. So specifically, a couple things, active living. So that's your exercise, that's going to yoga, Pilates, going for your daily walk, whatever you enjoy doing, it's moving your body somehow. Substance use. In this case, it would be lack of substance use or minimal. Healthy habits and routines, nutrition, eating nutritionally dense food, getting all those fruits and veggies, those whole grains, protein, things like that. Healthy sleep, making sure we're getting those 8 hours of sleep at night. And lastly, sexual health. So this is the definition of physical wellness. How this relates directly to DV. What is going to be impacted physically when you're in an abusive relationship or after? So all of these things that I'm going to cover today can be direct or indirect or immediate or long-term impacts. So the first one here, most common that we're going to think of is those injuries, physical injuries, whether it's bruises, cuts, broken bones, lost hair, lost teeth, different things like that, how your body's physically going to be impacted from an abusive relationship. Miscarriage, unwanted pregnancy, other complications related to that. Loss of sleep or sleeping days away. Maybe this is due to stress. Maybe it's due to the physical violence happening. It's your partner preventing you from resting, from getting sleep. And they're increasing your stress, mental health imbalances, different things like that. Increased sleep, maybe that's your coping mechanism. If you're struggling mental health wise, sleep is a big thing that you're gonna do to rest and just get out of your own head for a while. Next part here, loss or increased appetite or eating disorders. Substance abuse, whether that substance abuse is a coping mechanism or not, or it's forced from the abuser. Regarding to appetite and eating disorders, when we have that increased stress response, we're going to tend to reach for those comfort foods that are less nutritious and aren't going to fuel our body as much. We're at risk for STDs, decreased or increased libido, increased risk for chronic health problems. This has been proven. Arthritis, chronic pain, digestive problems, heart problems, insomnia, migraines, immune disorders, all really long-lasting chronic health problems that are going to make the future more difficult. Rapid weight loss or weight gain. This could be directly from your partner, limiting or pushing what you eat, saying, oh, you can't eat that, that's going to make you fat. That's all those sort of things, degrading and belittling through what a person eats. maybe they don't let you go to the gym because they think you're going to cheat on them if they go to the gym. Going outside for walks, different things like that you're not allowed to do because you're isolated. So these are some impacts that domestic violence will have on your physical wellness dimension. So after those impacts, how can we improve them? What can we do if we're dealing with a victim of domestic violence? First off, we can give some advice. Throughout all these things, I'm going to give different key points and advice to give to victims. So first one, make moving a priority. It's so beneficial to exercise, and it improves your mental health, physical health, all those different things. We know this, but it's so important to keep reiterating it to a victim. So for example, start walking, get outside, join a group fitness class or gym. That's also going to help your social wellness. Maybe they'll make some new friends, go swimming, go biking, whatever a person likes to do to get their body moving, have them keep doing that. Find what works for them. It can also be something as simple as maybe they take the stairs instead of the elevator. They join a class. There's free ones all over Green Bay. I know you can attend your first one for free at a lot of places. Titletown does yoga during the summer. There's all sorts of different cost-effective ways to do that as well. Next one. So swap out your comfort food for nutrient-dense options. For example, I have a couple up here. So instead of grabbing that ice cream, maybe go for some yogurt. Get more protein in chips, and crackers instead of chips, canned fruit for candy. Swap out those comfort foods. It's going to benefit you a lot more in the long run. Start winding down an hour before bed. If somebody is struggling with insomnia or getting to bed just in the first place, falling asleep, give them advice that they can turn off their electronics, read a book, take a hot bath, have some tea, whatever self-care gets them to wind down, calm down, and relieve that stress response. Practice that. Next one here, practice self-love and care. This is going to look different for everyone. Maybe it is some of those things I said a little bit before. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's doing a face mask. Maybe it's painting your nails. Whatever it is, practice that self-love and learn to give it to yourself again first. And lastly, find some healthy coping mechanisms, whether that's working out, maybe meditation, yoga, running, different things like that, outlets you can use as a way to heal versus reaching for something like alcohol or drugs or comfort food, something like that. It's easy to turn to those things with trauma and perspectives of an abusive relationship, but it's not going to be productive towards healing, and finding other outlets is going to really help relieve that stress. So this is how we can improve that physical aspect of wellness. Okay. Next category here, we're going to talk about emotional wellness. So definition of emotional wellness. This is the ability to handle life's stressors and adapt to change in difficult times. Being aware and accepting of your wide range of emotions in yourself. So whether that's the good, the bad, the ugly, any of those things, we're going to learn how to accept them and validate our own feelings. We're human. It's okay to have those different reactions. Adaptability here. Being able to adapt to those changes that's happening every day. As a victim, you're going to be going through a ton of changes all the time. It's really important to know that you're able to handle those. Reaching for those healthy coping mechanisms once again. Mindfulness and healthy feedback. So receiving that from others and also giving it back to others. So this is the definition of emotional wellness. Okay, so how domestic violence impacts these things. I think this is also one of the most commonly thought of ones based on wellness. So lower self-esteem. If you're being belittled constantly by your partner, them telling you you're ugly, you're fat, you're worth nothing, if I leave you, nobody's going to want you, all those different things, it's going to kill that self-esteem. It's going to be really tough. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. Once again, so that excessive drinking, smoking, drug use, eating disorders. It might feel like it feels good in the moment and it's temporarily taking away that pain, but it's just going to keep putting it off more and more in that long run. Trust issues with themselves and others. How could they let this happen to themselves? How can I trust again in the future if I've been burned so many times? And then lastly, mental health disorders, PTSD, depression, anxiety, substance use, suicidal thoughts. All of this comes from the trauma that they experienced in that abusive relationship and the re-traumatization when they're telling other people about it again and again. So this is the impacts on their emotional well-being. How can we improve these things? So first off, a victim is going to want to become self-aware. Notice that their feelings and these actions and these habits and character traits that they're having in life, are they serving you well or are they not? Recognizing what's good for you, what isn't, and just realizing that you are human. It's okay to have these different reactions. Find out what is triggering to the victim. Start having those difficult conversations with yourself and others, and it's going to help them navigate how to move forward in the future and be able to recognize, hey, I'm being triggered right now. What can I do for myself? What can I do for some self-care right now? Learn how to respond versus react to situations. So definition here quick. Responding is exercising that emotional intelligence, thinking through the process, measuring what you're going to do next, and it slows down. It slows down everything. Reacting is that emotional immediately without thought. It's usually going to be negative. So try to figure out how we can respond to different stressors in our life versus react, and just slow down how that's all happening. And lastly, practicing that self-forgiveness, that you did go through this. It was never your fault as a victim. Nobody deserves to ever be a victim of domestic violence, and it's never at the fault of the victim. So forgiving yourself is important as well for moving on from emotional well-being. So that covers that dimension. We're going to keep it moving. Social wellness. So this one is specifically to your ability to relate and connect with others in the community and the people around us, and having those positive interactions within our circle. So healthy relationships, very spot on for domestic violence. Communication skills, respecting others and yourself. I want to put that in there as well. And your support systems, how all of those can tie in and relate to you. So some impacts that domestic violence is going to have on your social aspect of everything. The number one thing, isolation, the loss of your support system. The abuser maybe made you cut ties with everybody, with your friends, with your family, with your coworkers. All those people who were in your corner possibly are gone now because your abuser isolated you so far. So getting that back somehow, we'll talk about that in the next slide. People in your circle maybe have also taken sides. Maybe your partner was very highly liked, big position at work, something like that, and they decided to believe them over you. So that's also another hard thing that's impacted. Social anxiety. When your self-esteem got broken down so far from your abuser, it's really hard to bring that confidence back up. So you get anxious in those social situations and are not sure what to do with yourself. Also paranoia that maybe everybody hates you and because you were told that for so long, and people are to get you as well. Communication barriers. So maybe you develop some unhealthy habits in that abusive relationship, and the only way you communicated with your partner was ever through screaming or yelling or being aggressive, things like that. You have to unlearn those behaviors, and different things like that. Trust difficulties with improving current and forming new relationships. Difficulties at work. I'm going to touch on this more in a little bit as well, but increased risk of job loss, lack of focus and quality of work. Here at Golden House, we have a program called DV in the Workplace, and we have a whole workshop on how an employee can be impacted by domestic violence at work and what happens in that. So that's a great program, and I recommend all of it to all of you as well, if you're interested. We'll touch on that more in a bit. So how can we improve our social wellness? Reach back out to those family and friends that we may have neglected during that relationship, who were cut off by your abuser or different things like that. Build that support system back up. It's so important to have people in your corner when you're going through recovery and things like that. Work on building trust with safe people. Talk to your therapist on regards to social anxiety, trust, healthy communication. A therapist and professional is going to be beyond helpful, whether that person is still in that relationship or whether they have gotten out, so they can learn what happened to them and how they can improve in the future. Engage in local events in your community. Get outside, get out of your comfort zone again to try to bring it back some normalcy. and possibly lead to those new positive connections with others, meet some new friends, expand that support circle again. And focus on spending time with people who make you feel good. Figure out who really is helping you along your journey and who can help you improve from this relationship. Okay. Environmental wellness. This is a fun one. So having good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that can support your well-being. It promotes interaction with nature and also enjoying your personal environment. So environmental wellness is not just getting outside, taking a walk, taking a hike or something like that. It's also the environment that you live in. So your room, your house at home, how clean you keep it, your work environment, is that healthy? Is it supporting your well-being? Different things like that. As well as being aware of your impact on the environment. This is also a part of the environmental wellness. So using the 4 R's, reduce, reuse, rethink, and recycle. We all know those. Being aware of the risks in certain settings. This is also part of it. So if you go out at night, are you taking those precautions that you need to? Are you traveling in new places and you know the risks that you're taking? And understanding the purpose of keeping a healthy personal and work environment. Impacts on your environmental wellness from a domestic violence relationship. Fear and phobia. So fear of leaving the house because maybe your abuser is somewhere out there. He's waiting for you. He's trying to find you. Phobia of different things that your abuser used to hurt you. Getting triggered by a person, by something, by someone who acts like your abuser, somebody who sounds like your abuser, anything like that. So you're going to have a little bit increased fear of phobias. Unhealthy personal environment. Maybe you kept negative people in your life because that was all you knew at the time. As well as, this is on the completely other end of the spectrum, but general lack of sanitation and unorganization. It's really hard for a person to clean their room in their house if they're just trying to survive. It's not a priority. It's not something that they're putting first on the list. They are just trying to survive their relationship. So this is something that can get put on the back burner. And lastly, here we have risky environments. So dangerous neighborhoods, maybe bars, drugs and alcohol can be involved in those places, and it impairs your judgment and your environment. So using unhealthy coping mechanisms can end you or have you end up in those unsafe places. How can we improve our environmental wellness? First off, we can catch what those triggers are in the environment as soon as they arise. It's easier to manage it right away if we can recognize it in the beginning, and then we can talk it out with others. So maybe you have a therapist or a friend, family member that you really trust and that they're supporting you throughout this process, or an advocate, something like that. And you talk about all these problems as they come up right away. Get them out of your system and talking it out. Decluttering your home environment. This is going to be after the fact that this person is starting to heal and they're ready to keep going in their wellness journey. You'd be surprised how much decluttering your place or cleaning, making it fresh can really do for a person's well-being. Spend more time outside. The sun is an amazing resource. Little bit of vitamin D is going to help a lot. And lastly, find environments that are healthy to spend your time. So instead of going to the bar, maybe you go to a coffee shop, you go to the gym, you go to the library, you read, you go to a friend's house. Find those healthy environments that you can spend your time to relax, recover, whatever you need to do. All right, we're pushing through. Next one here is spiritual wellness. So spiritual wellness is the expanding the sense of your purpose and meaning of life. This is going to include a person's morals and ethics, and this does not have to be religious. It includes the development of a deep appreciation for the depth and the largest of life that we have and natural forces that exist in the universe. So when I say it doesn't have to involve religious entities, recently I've learned things like manifestation, astrology. Those are all ways that you can impact your spiritual life. And it's defined by the core values that you consistently try to align with in your daily needs, what you're doing every day, your ability to establish peace and harmony in your life, and being present in the moment and not worried about what's going on in the future or what happened a couple of days ago. Really focusing on just living for the now and what's going on today. All right. Impacts from domestic violence on your spiritual wellness. First off is that loss of faith. This can happen when you're put in those incredibly difficult and detrimental relationships. If somebody is Catholic, for example, maybe they lose trust in God, and they feel as they can't count on them anymore because God let them go through this horrific situation. So this can be religiously, maybe in humanity in general, you lose your faith because possibly you're a victim who wasn't believed by other people, and you didn't have that support system. Nobody believed you. You lose your faith in them. And meaning of life, it's really hard to go through an abusive relationship and you get lost. You're not sure what to do next. All those different things is going to make you lose your faith and just everything in general. Weaponizing their religion or beliefs. So maybe your abuser cherry picks certain texts, religious texts, to their advantage. So selectively choosing those things. Usually this would happen in a male abuser, female victim situation. So once again, for Catholic example, divorce is frowned upon in that community, and it can prolong that relationship, that abusive relationship, and blame the victim in the end. Last one here, how your spiritual wellness can be impacted is struggling to stay in the present. So having anxiety about the future and PTSD from the past. That abusive situation changed that person's brain completely. They can find themselves being triggered by something small, like at the grocery store, you see a kitchen knife and you're just going to go right back to that place where you were afraid that your abuser was going to hurt you. Different things like that. It's struggling to stay where you are in the now, thinking about constantly about the future, thinking about the past, and not staying in the moment. How to improve spiritual wellness. So first off, I just have some self-care version of things. Practice meditation, journaling, yoga, or other some sort of grounding activity. Meditation specifically is actively practicing just being in the moment, shutting out everything else, shutting out the past, shutting out the future. When we're living in the present, you're not able to stress about things that were past or worries of the future. You are just thinking about what's happening currently. So this is also really important. Journaling, I find this super helpful. It organizes all those inner thoughts that are constantly racing through your mind. Writing out all those feelings, your worries, your angers, all those different things, get them out on paper and just get them out of your head. Yoga is a really good way to connect both the physical and spiritual wellness dimension, because you're moving your body at the same time, and it's going to lower that overall stress and boost your health. Find a mentor who can support you on your spiritual journey. But once again, this does not have to be religious based. Having somebody to keep you on track with your goals based on what your beliefs and values are is going to be really helpful. And it's easier to go through with somebody else versus alone. Explore your spiritual core again. So what did your values change after this abusive relationship? What are your different goals in life? Reevaluate what that looks like for you and find out who you are again and explore all those different avenues. And lastly, connect with others who share your same beliefs. Find your community, find your support system, find all those other people who have like views. That's going to be really key in recovering from this. So that's tying in the social dimension again. So as you can see, as I'm going throughout this, all of these are very connected to each other, and they're very related. So that was a spiritual wellness. Moving forward, we got a couple more here. Career wellness. So just as the name says, this is personal satisfaction and enrichment in life through your work. The ability to get personal fulfillment from your job while still maintaining that work-life balance. Whether that's contributing your unique gifts, skills, and talents to your work, and you want those to be both professionally and personally rewarding to yourself. Feeling inspired and challenged in a healthy way. This specifically is that we want to keep growing. If you're at a job where you're overqualified and you're just not feeling inspired anymore, you're not challenged, we're not going to keep getting that career wellness and moving to the next step and the next step. So how has DV impacted career wellness? Like I touched on earlier, DV in the workplace that Golden House does is really beneficial for this. Ultimately, job loss is a large thing that is very real and happens all the time in abusive relationships. Increased absences or tardies Maybe your abuser doesn't allow you to leave the house. Maybe you're physically injured and you need to go see a doctor from your abuser. Maybe you have a court date, you're trying to divorce your partner. The courts are only open until 5 p.m. So when are you supposed to go to court if you're working a 9 to 5 every day? So you're going to have increased absences or tardies. Abused or a victim might show up really late to work because they had a huge fight with their abuser this morning. Decreased concentration at work or job performance. It's very, very hard to concentrate at work tasks if their mind is focused on survival from that abusive relationship. When you're constantly being belittled, told you aren't good enough, that you're worthless, it's really hard to think that you can do a good job in your career. And then last one here, workplace interruptions. So that could be possibly from your abuser showing up to your work physically. They're physically coming to your work, making sure that you're actually there, that you're not out doing something else. Maybe they're texting you all day at work, blowing up your phone, so you're not able to focus on those tasks that you have to do at hand. There's a lot of different ways that this can happen in the workplace. And it's more common than we think. So how can we improve these different factors of an abusive relationship at work? Meet with your employer, talk about accommodations that you might need. Do you need more flexibility in your time? Do you need some grace periods? Do you need a little bit of time off from work to focus on yourself and get your mental health back in check, get your physical wellness back in check? All those different things. Do you need extra security measures? Do you need somebody to walk to your car at night at the end of the workday because you're afraid your abuser is going to be out there? So talk with your employer, if comfortable, about accommodations that you might need. Avoid settling and find a workplace that matches your values. So say you meet with your employer and they are not willing to accommodate any of these things. You don't want to stay in somewhere like that. You don't want to be in that environment. That's part of environmental wellness. Find somewhere that's going to support your values and meet you in the middle. Take time to improve those non-romantic relationships. So with your coworkers, your managers, and add them to your support system. The more people in your circle, the better. Keep improving those other relationships in your life as well. And focus on work-life balance as much as possible. So make sure you're still separating work from home. Those different things. Specifically with working from home now, it is hard to separate them. If any of you are doing that right now, find that balance. When it hits 5 p.m., shut off that computer, turn off that email, turn off those notifications, and don't touch it till the morning. Have that balance. It's very important. And last dimension I'm going to go over here today is financial wellness. So regarding monetary things. So the definition of financial wellness is a state of being where you can fully meet your current and future financial needs, feeling secure with your monetary decisions, and being able to live your life comfortably. This also is going to include the capacity to absorb a financial shock. So this could be something like you got into a car crash and you have to buy a new car, you got to fix your car. You had an emergency medical bill that came up. Your pet needs surgery. How are you going to be able to afford that? You're going to want to have the capacity to absorb those types of things in financial wellness. And then lastly, spending your money wisely, whatever that looks like to you, and utilizing a budget. So DV impacts. We know that 99% of domestic violence cases are going to have financial abuse occur. When we talk about domestic violence, most of us are going to think of that physical abuse. So the first one I have here is medical costs. Based on what we know, victims will need medical attention from that physical abuse. Medical bills here in the US specifically are one of the top reasons that people are going to go into debt or bankruptcy eventually. And that isn't even related to domestic violence sometimes. So just in general, in the US, those hospital bills and those medical bills are going to add up really fast. And it's hard to pay those off. Medical costs can follow a victim for the rest of their lives. Next one here, disrupted ability to work. We touched on this one just last couple slides, but their domestic violence is going to impact their ability to work in a lot of different ways, whether it's allowing them not to get a job in general in the first place, preventing them from going to their job directly or indirectly, or causing disruptions at the workplace. It's going to make it harder. And when you're not able to work, not get that money, not have separation between your finances, it's going to be harder to leave that relationship. Because you don't have the money to go rent somewhere else. You don't have the money to get some help, anything like that. Money is a huge problem. Next one here, partner controls all your finances. So one way that an abuser is going to financially control all that is maybe taking their victims' paychecks or money from their savings, not allowing them to have any income. They're soliciting an allowance every week saying you can only have this amount of money, but that's not enough for your basic needs. They're controlling everything, and the amounts that they do get to spend. Damage to credit. So opening credit cards in your partner's name, racking up that balance and never paying it. That's going to ruin the victim's credit score. And that also is going to make large problems in the future if they do want to leave to find a new apartment, new house, different things like that. Credit is important as well. And then last one here, financially, reproduction coercion. So this can happen a couple different ways. If your partner is sexually abusing you, they get you pregnant, they make you stay because it's for the child, different things like that, using children, part of that power and control wheel, sabotaging your partner's birth control. Either way, this is going to be a huge problem in an abusive relationship, and it's ultimately going to lead to financial struggle in the long run. Raising a child is not cheap. All of these different aspects are going to lead to that financial abuse. And that's how it's going to impact our financial wellness. How can we improve financial wellness during and after the fact? First note I have here is open your own bank account in your own name. So you can independently work on saving that money and building your finances back up to either, if you haven't left yet, to eventually leave, or to just keep improving after you have left. Budget and save where you can if possible. Obviously, if somebody is fleeing an abusive relationship, it's going to be, their finances usually are going to be out of struggle. So this is going to be going back to that privilege phase I said earlier. It is a privilege to be able to have a budget and save where you can, and even have a savings in general. Make a plan to tackle your credit card debts. There's a lot of different ways that this could be done, but maybe you open up a new credit card that allows you to balance transfer and interest-free for 18 months, something like that, giving that option to a victim if they are able to do that. And lastly, use your local resources to help in the meantime, whether that's going to food pantries. In Green Bay, Paul's Pantry, not far from here. Golden House, we provide all sorts of assistance and services, whether it's for housing, physical item needs like toiletries, or cleaning supplies, or towels, clothing, anything like that. St. Vincent de Paul for clothes, different things like that. And that's also Green Bay specific. All of those local resources are here to help you, and those people experiencing domestic violence. And lastly, I have government assistance programs like WPS, like energy saving, EBT, Medicaid, all those different things. So those are some how to improve your financial wellness. So that was the 7 dimensions. That was a lot of information, and I hope you guys were able to obtain quite a bit from it. I have just a few takeaways, key takeaways from all of this. So first off, know that wellness ultimately comes after the survival of an abusive relationship. A person cannot focus on their diet and exercise if they're just trying to survive and get out of that abusive relationship. This is going to come after. To be thriving versus surviving, there really needs to be a balance of all those dimensions I talked about. You can work out all the time, and you can eat really healthy, and you can have a lot of friends, but if your career isn't going well, if your finances aren't going well, you're not going to be able to thrive. And lastly, domestic violence victims have a lot more obstacles to overcome in the process of becoming more well, but it still is possible, and it's something we can focus on. I really just want to push the fact that this is something that's going to help improve their lives after the abusive relationship. And it's important to become more well overall for them as well. Does anybody have any questions for me? You can put them in the chat, anything like that before I spoke really fast, I guess. We were kind of speeding ahead. Somebody said, will there be a slideshow sent out to all participants after the presentation? Yes, I will be able to share these with everybody after. I believe I can send them to Renina and she'll be able to send it out. Just so you guys can look back on it because it is a lot of information and the impacts and how to improve is very beneficial for you guys. Does anybody else have any other questions? Can put them in the chat. Comments, concerns. Has anybody dealt specifically with anything related to any of these dimensions of wellness before? Have you heard about them before? Brooke, are participants able to answer during this?
I don't see any questions coming in, do you?
Okay. No, I'm not seeing any on my end. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, it says chat is disabled.
Oh, you can only type in the queue. Oh no. Brooke, you should have control over the chat. I guess if you guys do have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A. Maddie said that the show Made is a great look at domestic violence and the struggles that I mentioned. I have heard really good things about that show. I need to watch it myself. I haven't watched it, but I have heard really good things. So thank you for that. I'm not sure if Brooke is able to disable the chat or not. But if you do guys have questions, you can put them in the Q&A quick.
Looks like we will have to use the Q&A session.
Okay. Does Wisconsin have laws protecting employees to be able to take more time off for core or medical needs? No. So when we at Golden House, we do our domestic violence in the workplace program. We meet specifically with managers and HR teams at different businesses, and we give them examples, plans, and policies of what they can do in their workplace to help support their employees if they do need that extra PTO for quarter medical needs. So it's specifically up to those companies. For example, we met with UWGB a couple weeks ago, and they already had a plan and policy in place for those who were in an abusive relationship and needed that extra time off. So it is specific to the organization, what they decide to do. Everybody, please feel free to go to our Facebook page and like it to get more updates about Golden House as well. All of our information is posted on there. We have all of our events also posted, and you can also look up our website for our wish list if you're interested in that, volunteer opportunities. So we can be found online pretty easily. We got an anonymous comment that somebody has been working with women recovering in many different areas of wellness discussed today. That is amazing to hear. I'm so happy to hear that. That's great. Perfect. Were there any other questions from anybody or comments before we close? All right. My information will be listed on the next slide after this. We were asked to just speak about this Be Safe campaign quick. So the Be Safe campaign was launched 2 days ago, actually, and it's for seeking to enhance awareness on your local domestic violence resources. It's connected with us at Golden House, law enforcement organizations, and the CCR team in Brown County. Led by community leaders and organizations, and it seeks to reach domestic violence victims by offering free and local resources. And it's an easy to remember number that's just a call away. So it is online, it is 920-212-safe.com, capitalsafe.com. I believe you'll get information about this later as well. But and the number 920-212-SAFE. So yeah, thank you for attending, everybody. This is my specific information. If you have any questions in the future or any other things that you don't feel like putting in the chat right now, And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Golden House has our huge event tonight, Show of Strength for fundraising. Tickets are still available if you're interested. But thank you so much for attending today.